Welcome back, everyone, to this next segment of understanding the basic grammar for the DSAT exam. Today, we'll be talking about subject-verb agreement. In the previous sessions, we have understood these two subtopics individually, subject and verb. We've understood what is a subject, we've talked about what is an object, we've also talked about what are the different ways of identifying the subject, and also how do you remove the subject ambiguity. Further, we've also talked about verbs, tenses, and the numbers in both of these. So, what are we going to learn in today's session? The purpose of talking of subject-verb agreement is how to match the number between subject and verb. In other words, we'll be trying to understand how do subject and verb agree with each other. As in, the number of subject in a sentence must be equal to the number of verb. The first rule, as we already talked, singular subject takes singular verbs and plural subject take plural verbs. For example, the dog. Now, dog is the subject here, and the dog is singular, so my verb is also singular in the S form, runs. Dogs, plural, and run, singular again. Whenever a noun is followed by S or ES, it makes it a plural noun. On the other hand, whenever you are doing it with a verb, if you add an S or ES to a verb, it converts it into the singular form. For any further clarity, you can have a quick revision over the previous verb videos that we've already discussed these things in. Navigating a bit further into these rules, the next rule states that when two or more singular subjects are joined by and, as in when we have a compound subject, in that case, we use a plural verb. For example, in this situation, you have not just one, but two subjects, cat and dog. So in simple terms, and functions as a plus. That's it. So when you add 1 plus 1 or whatever, even if it was cats and dogs, which means it was more than one, this was more than one. And even then, if you're adding, or even if they are 1 and 1, that does not really matter because the moment you add them, the subject becomes more than one, as in a plural. Thus, the respective subject must be are. Similarly, John and Sarah are studying for the test and not is. The next rule that we need to talk of is when two subjects are connected by or and not, the verb agrees with the subject closer to it. Now we talked of one conjunction, which was and, in which we said that 1 plus 1, and thus it makes it more than one and taking a plural verb. But in case of or not, the situation is that whatever the subject would be closer to the verb, that is the form with which it has to agree. For example, cat versus dogs. Now cat is singular and dogs is plural. But my verb agrees with the form that is closer to it instead of going with the form that cat said. So are is in conjunction, is in respect to the dogs, the plural one, and not the cat. So whenever two things are joined using or not, in such a case, your verb will agree with the subject that is closer to it. Same goes for the situation neither not, because again, the conjunction between them is not only. So the teacher and students. Now, because this is the closer one to the verb, so I'll again pick up the verb according to the closer verb, and thus it is again are. But had I reversed the situation, had I said neither the students nor the teacher, in that case, I would have said an is. Rule 4 says that indefinite pronouns, such as everyone, someone, each, nobody, these will always take singular verbs. Basically, whenever using any form which says every, each, all, some, no, these all singularize your subject. When I'm saying that everyone needs to do this or nobody can do this, I am talking about each and every entity individually, thus singularizing my subject. Accordingly, the verb also is singular. Everyone, not are. Everyone is excited about the event, or each of the books is important or is on the shelf. The next rule is whenever your subject is a collective noun, for example, a team or a group or a committee or a bench or whatsoever, whenever it is a collective noun, it is used as singular verb as long as it is considered a single unit, it is behaving like a singular unit. For example, the team is playing well. So here, the entire team is playing well, or the entire group is deciding on the plan. Thus, respectively, your verbs are also singular. Rule 6 says that you will use a singular verb when the subject is a compound subject that represents a single idea or entity. Now, single idea or entity would be what? Something like, what did you have for the breakfast? I had bread and jam, or bread and butter. Or what is the person trying to do, or how is he coming by? He is just earning his bread and butter. So basically, all of these things are conveying a single idea or a single entity, like peanut butter and jelly, rock and roll music. These are not two different things. Thus, they are considered as singular, and the compound subject rule does not apply to them. You will not make them plural just because you see them connected using and, because ultimately these are conveying the same thing, the same idea. So, peanut butter and jelly is my favorite dish and not R. Rock and roll is a popular genre of music, not R. The next rule says that whenever you have a title of a book, movie, or any kind of a work, in such a situation, again, irrespective of the title being in singular form or plural form, the verb that you use will be singular. The Lord of the Rings is. Now, Lord of the Rings is a famous trilogy. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of it. The Lord of the Rings is a great movie, not art. Mice and Men is a classic novel. Now, Mice and Men, men is plural. Despite that, because that was the name of a work. And okay, just on a side note, how do you recognize if something is a name of a work or not? One thing would be that, okay, it could be in italics. This is one thing. If it's a published work, it would be in italics. But if it is not a complete published work, in that case, it could also be given between two quotes. But in either situation, every single letter of the nouns is going to be a capital letter, just like in this situation. This is another way to identify what is the name of a work or an essay or a poem for that matter. The last rule for us to pay cognizance towards is when none is the subject, it can take either a singular or plural verb depending on the context. Now, what do we mean by the context here? None of the cake was eaten, but none of the cookies were eaten. Now, when you're saying none, none of what? That is the context that you need to check. If it is singular, then your verb is also singular. But if it is plural, then your verb is also going to be plural. That's about the basic rules. Let's now move on to practicing some questions. Tell me, the dog run or runs fast in the park? Certainly, because we have dog as a singular subject. So the verb should also be singular, runs. Either my brother or my parents. Okay, now when you're saying either or, so the conjunction here is or, which means which rule has to take place? Where we talk that the closer subject will decide the right form of verb. So either my brother or my parents. Now, parents is the closer subject. Thus, parents are going to pick me up. Each of the students was or were given a certificate. Now, because we have a singularizing subject each over here, again, I'm talking about every individual student, and thus the right answer should be was. Neither the teacher nor the students dash have finished the assignment. Again, the same rule, you have the connected nor, which means that the closer subject will govern the right answer. Students is plural, so your answer will also be plural. Have finished the assignment. The committee has or have made its decision. Because the decision is unanimous, the committee is functioning as a singular unit, and thus the correct answer should be has. Neither of the books dash on the shelf. Now, in this situation, when you're saying neither, then you are again saying that you had two books and none of them is on the shelf. So you're again singularizing both of them, leaving you with the right answer as is. Neither of the books is on the shelf. The team dash practicing hard for the championship. Because the team is practicing collectively for the championship, it is again behaving as a singular unit. Making is as the right answer. So the team is practicing hard. The data is or are being analyzed by the researchers. Now, again, this is a tricky one, and I've seen a lot of students go in the wrong direction for this one. The correct answer here, surprise, surprise, is are. The data are being analyzed by the researchers. Why so? Because data is the plural form for datum. So datum is the singular, data is the plural. So yes, the right answer is are. The teacher as well as the students dash excited. Now, the moment you say as well as works differently than and. It does not simply work as a plus kind of situation. And when you're saying as well as, so it's basically that, okay, you're talking about the students also and the teacher, but ultimately it is the students that will decide the form of the verb. Thus, the teacher as well as the students were excited. The news was or were surprising to everyone. Again, news is a piece of information that we're talking about. Thus, the news was surprising to everyone. Neither the dog nor the cat, neither nor, the connector is nor. Again, we'll pick up something based on the closer one, but here it did not really matter which one you're picking up based on because dog and cat both were singular. As long as you're not counting them as a plus one situation, your answer would have been correct. Neither the dog nor the cat is responsible for the mess. The students in the class. Now, this is about the subject ambiguity situation. We've already talked that this becomes a prepositional phrase. So, students is your subject, and accordingly, are excited about the trip. The book titled Gone with the Wind, irrespective of the plural or the singular subject, your titles will be followed by a singular form of verb. So, is my favorite. Now, when you're saying none, you're again individualizing the pieces of furniture instead of talking of it in a collective unit by saying furniture. Had I simply said furniture, then it would have been a plural form. But here you're saying none of the furniture, thus was moved. The pair of shoes is or are on the sale. Despite being two, the pair is functioning as a singular unit. Thus, pair of shoes is on sale. I believe you should have gotten some clarity about the subject verb agreement so far and the basic rules as to how you treat and in what situations would you treat a subject plural versus singular and how do you match the verb with it. More advanced practice with respect to the SAT will definitely be taken up directly in the session for the very same. Thank you for joining for the basic learning.